Hi, I'm Ali Zendrian, Editor-in-Chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I uncover news gems that may not have gotten their full chance to sparkle, and I dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted co-host and personal financial advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Brandon, how's it going? I can't believe we're at the end of 2025, really.
It's going well, and I think this likely will be the last one we do for the year, seeming how exactly in 1 week, as at time of recording, we've got Christmas, and then the following week is, I think that's January 1st, right? That's how that math would work out. So yes, we've got the holidays coming up. Sometimes feels like the last couple weeks right before is just a sprint to get a lot of stuff in. So I'm wrapping up some tax planning work because there's a few things that financial advisors have that are typically urgent. Tax planning, end of year deadline. Kind of one of them, or definitely one of them. So that's kind of what I've been working on. So how's the end of your year shaping up?
It's been interesting. In some ways, it's been a little bit quieter. In other ways, it's like the rush and oh my God, we have to get that last bit of news out. But it's been a good mix of everything.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I always like to see if people are extra busy, not as busy. And my typical response is honestly what you just shared, Ali, where certain things are busier, certain things are lighter. And sometimes it can flip-flop in different years, just depending. So.
Yeah, totally. So we'll take it, but may 2026 be a good year. We'll see. Absolutely. So our first piece of news this week is from AtoZ communication client Rossby Financial. I wanted to humble brag for them. They got 3 AtoZ advisors this year, 2 of them very recently. Most recently was Nicola Nickel. She's from Financial Strategies in Amelia, Florida. And there was also J. Christopher Andrews from Windward Financial Strategies in Alaska. And earlier this year, they got Tony Reyna, founder of Raymar Wealth. Just a great win for them. And going through their stats for the year, they have now 21 IARs. That's up from 7 from the prior year, and experienced nearly 100% growth in the number of their partner firms. So why I think that this is significant, apart from the fact that I want to brag about my client doing well, is Rossby has been one of those firms that's been known for saying that basis points are basically BS, to put it nicely. Or
that's a good quote. Basis points are BS, basically. I like that.
I know. We had done a thought leadership article about that. I should have made that the title. Darn me. But
next
anyway.
time.
The point being basically that, as your firm gets larger and larger, it's not like you get extra compliance for this. It's not like you get really extra marketing or extra tools. You just you wind up paying more, and for what? So they're great about giving that really to the advisor and then letting them grow how they want to. So in some cases that might be buying the building that they're in, or it could mean that they're hiring somebody. So with that context in mind, I was curious what you thought about this news.
Yeah, well, one, I thought it was a super well written article, first of all. So obviously great work for you on this. But what really stood out to me and what you wrote was the more efficiency aspect. So you talked about some of those advisors repurposing money that would have gone to what would have almost felt like nothing before. They're still getting the same level of service, even at higher levels of AUM, but they're able to repurpose that into, you mentioned, sounded like one advisor bought a building, other advisors are reinvesting back into technology. But the long story short is they're investing back into what their specific business needs, and they're able to be more efficient, and they're able to take control as business owners. So, I mean, with the little context that I have, I could see why folks would be shifting over there, where they're likely fiercely independent and are able to now repurpose these savings into what's going to drive the bottom line for their business, and even more importantly, their clients that they're serving.
Yeah. And I think if you look at it from the client standpoint, so I think we never think about, how much is Brandon paying into whatever firm that he works for? How much is he getting back? It's just, he's probably making a good living and everything's fine. Why can't you do whatever? Why is it that you can't call me back fast enough because you don't have enough support, blah, blah. So I thought it shed light on there are sometimes barriers to things being accomplished. And it's great that Rossby is able to remove some of those for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. We've talked about efficiency on the podcast before too. And again, the advisors have more control, more flexibility to repurpose that savings into what they need. Yeah, I think it's a huge benefit. So yeah, really, really cool stuff going on over there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So the second piece of news caught my eye based on the headline, Morningstar and PitchBook bring trusted investing intelligence to apps in ChatGPT. So the press release said that Morningstar and PitchBook's Model Context Protocol app integrations are now live, enabling licensed users to access proprietary public and private market data and insights securely within Morningstar and PitchBook apps in ChatGPT. So I'll be honest, the only reason that I knew what an MCP was because AtoZ Communication Client Advisor Pro recently just launched one. But getting back to the announcement, they were saying in the press release that Morningstar's goal with all of this is that it wants to become the indispensable intelligence layer for investing. That was what I really took away. And it's interesting having this level of access to information, and I presume quickly. What do you think that this what kind of impact do you think that this might have?
Yeah, I think it really is all about the data, right? I mean, at this point, a lot of these large language models, ChatGPT, of course, being one of them, what is it being trained on? What data is it sourcing? And when you can feel confident in the data that's being put in this case with Morningstar and PitchBook here, then you can feel even more confident. And I would presume even less likely to have some hallucinations compared to if it's searching the entire internet. There could be an article that makes something sound like a fact, and then that's how maybe ChatGPT hallucinates something. But if you have data integrity, which is effectively what this would be, again, I would think that the probability of hallucination would be a little bit less, and then therefore you can trust the outputs a little bit more heavily. Of course, still checking your sources, but a little less likely for hallucination equals more confidence in the tool.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right, because it's saying it's only citing trusted sources. So, like you said, you Google something, you could turn up anybody's blog with somebody in their basement who's bored and came up with some cockamamie story. But just being able to pull from trusted resources, I think, is great. I would be curious, though. So, I guess if I'm thinking about how it gets used, would it be akin to XYZ plant of some company blew up? What does that mean for the stock or whatever? Would that be the usage for it? Checking on what the news is and how that impacts a company, or how do you see that being utilized?
Good question. So I feel like that could be one particular case. Although if a news event like that came up, likely there's going to be some quick reaction at least in the market. But maybe this tool could help you determine, okay, after the tragedy of this event, what could potentially happen? What kind of profit center was this one particular warehouse? Oh, they moved 75% of their inventory through this particular warehouse. Okay, that's likely then going to cause the company to drop a bit more if they have to figure out the logistics of rerouting 75% of their inventory through some other channel. So maybe there could be some data like that. I don't know if other advisors would be using it to potentially research companies for to build a stock portfolio or build an investment portfolio in general. That could be something where they can get quicker access to some of the information, but at least off the top of my head, those are a few use cases that come to mind at least.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's super duper helpful. On to our next bit of news. This came from Church Mutual Insurance Company. According to them, 75% of Americans want to give at least the same amount charitably, if not more than what they did last year. I thought that was interesting because it feels like lately all the news has been this dour. Everybody feels like the economy's going to crap. Nobody's giving or otherwise inclined. But according to their survey, 40% feel uncertain or concerned about today's economic conditions. 60% say that they're cautiously optimistic. So is this a case of those, look, you can survey this group of people, they're going to say XYZ thing versus this group of people, and then they're going to say this. Like, how do we reconcile all these different surveys?
I think that's the point of surveys that we have to look deeper into who's being asked, because especially right now with the economy, and we've briefly touched on this before, but people can be living two entirely different realities. They could live even in a similar geographic area, but all sorts of different factors, family size, income level, self-employed versus not self-employed. Certain businesses, of course, are going to be more impacted by tariffs, other businesses, not so much. So there's nearly an infinite number of variables where someone could say the economy is horrible, someone could say the economy is great, and they could both be correct, which is kind of a tough concept to really consider, because again, someone could be struggling, someone could be thriving. So for the person who's not struggling, they're not going to think the economy's doing that great. Person thriving, oh, everything's fine and dandy, right? So I do think it really is situational, and we shouldn't only, of course, look to surveys on how we should feel about certain economic conditions, and ultimately, I turn us back to what can we control. Obviously, as business owners, we have a bit more control over our income, like we had talked about before. But what other things can people be doing to increase their emergency savings, to increase some of that flexibility and security that they might have in their life? So, because we could get caught up in negative headlines, positive headlines all day long, but ultimately, what can we control? That's where our true focus should be, because if we can't control something, well, probably shouldn't worry terribly too much about it.
Right. Or if you do, you're basically just giving yourself an ulcer for no good reason.
Right. Right. Also easier said than done, I acknowledge.
No, also true. But it was encouraging seeing that stat about more people wanting to give charitably. With that in mind, especially with the holidays and whatnot, hopefully that really is true, and all the good groups are getting the funding that they very well need and deserve. I guess we shall see. It will be great to see taking this survey, and then if there's a way that we can look at it come January, February, see what happens. Then maybe we'll find some level of truth instead of just varying types of opinions.
Right, right. And I will say one other thing that jumped out about this article was 68% of gifts were given via cash. So I don't know how they necessarily differentiated that, because I looked in and there was mobile giving and other aspects. So I wasn't sure, are we talking physical cash, or does a bank account transfer technically count in that? If it doesn't count in that, because again, I would consider mobile giving and separate in that. I found that interesting. Like, where are people getting this cash from? To almost 70% of people giving that way, which I found interesting, because at least even thinking back to my giving both this year and in years past, it's almost never been in the form of cash. It's almost exclusively been through an app or even a credit card. So bank account or credit card basically is almost the only way I've given in the last 5 years or so. But what about you? What from your experience, is it more cash, mobile giving, or what's that been like for you?
No, definitely more mobile giving. Although I would say you probably get something similar, like the local fire department or whatnot will do the annual drive. And then I was thinking about it like, well, for that, I would give a check. So I don't know if then in that case, is the check cash? Because I don't
What
know.
category is that? Right. Fair point.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe in that case, if you think about all your different local groups, I mean, I can't. Apart from them, I can't think of anybody else who's asking me for money. But you're right. It is interesting to think that people are giving it in cash. I mean, maybe it is you know what? From a giving standpoint, I mean, I wouldn't have considered this part of that, but I mean, my kids like school fundraisers. I feel
Okay.
like every month or so there's oh, hey, we're like doing cookies, and then we're doing this, and that's usually cash, but that's usually what they ask for. But is that charitably giving? I guess so.
Yeah, yeah. That could be it too. So yeah, I just found that interesting. It was
Yeah.
a lot of cash, because one of the quick pieces of advice that I would share is for folks that whether we're defining cash as bank account, credit card, et cetera, kind of shifting it from that point, consider if someone has a brokerage account and they have appreciated shares of stock. Oftentimes that ends up being a little bit more tax efficient, because you don't necessarily have to sell it, realize taxable capital gains, and then give it to the charity. You can just donate the gifts of appreciated stock directly to. So you save out on not only the capital gains, but if you're itemizing your deductions, you can of course write off the charitable amount that you're giving to. There's some more limits and restrictions with that, but at least high level, that's one way on how that could work. So if you have a bunch of appreciated shares of stock or even crypto, likely your local charity is, if they haven't figured out a way to accept them yet, I'm pretty confident if you go and say, hey, I have thousands of dollars to give you, they will probably figure out how they can take those shares off your hands.
You're right. And that has been interesting in the years that it seems like, versus you trying to figure out the way that the charity wants to receive whatever it is, whether it's clothes or money in whatever form. It does seem like they're very much like, look, what is it that you want to give us? We will find a way. We will take it. Just tell us what it is. So that is pretty nice.
Yep, absolutely.
So our last bit of news this week, and as you mentioned, so since it's the holidays, this is really the last bit of news for the year, which is a little tear, but anyway, is from Fifth Third, which gave $145,000 in tips and grants to small businesses. So this is part of their program that they've been doing for the last 3 years, where they give tips of $53 because of the 5 and 3. To businesses that they frequent. And then otherwise, there's a social media campaign, and 11 lucky winners got $5,300 in grants. As you mentioned, as small business owners, just wanted to give a shout out. Obviously, we appreciate supporting small businesses. Come support ours as well. But it's great to see this kind of grassroots small campaign, because it does seem like it's a genuine so-and-so is a very good neighbor. And so why don't we, pay them back a little bit? I wanted to get your thoughts though on that.
I think this was an amazing campaign, from one allowing the employees to to choose the small businesses that they're the ones likely supporting to some degree. There's a reason they're choosing them for the $53 tip, but I think it's much beyond, of course, the $53 tip. It's they chose that particular business, so that business owner can feel hopefully joyful and feel good about the work that they're doing in their community, but also even the way that they've built this from a campaign and social perspective, where yes, there's the $53 tip. Ultimately, that's a relatively small sum, but then the posting about it, using the hashtag, so driving potential awareness. And I feel like especially at this time, but really all times, it's really cool to see on social media positive stories on what companies are doing or people are doing in the local community in a positive way, and not always the doom and gloom that the media often draws to based on from my sports broadcasting days. You probably got this in journalism as well. If it bleeds, it leads. Yep. Is true, unfortunately. But whenever we can hear positive stories like this, always much more heartwarming and my favorite type of stories too.
You know what? That's very smart what you brought up about social media, because you're right. I feel like how many times on social media is it, blah, 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 got my drink, versus using this opportunity and saying, so-and-so has been so fabulous to me throughout the year. I just gave them $53 and here's why, and you should frequent that business too. You're right. It's all around just giving those like nice touches of love and care.
Yeah, which also, again, a reminder for everyone out there, even from supporting a small business perspective, just liking and following that business's social media. I know it might not seem like a lot, but again, as a business owner myself, and of course, you're very active on LinkedIn as well. Sometimes just having that like button, like the amount of times, Allie, and you probably get this too, I'll be out and people would be like, "Oh yeah, I loved your content." Now, I don't mean out as in I have strangers coming up to me. This was a few years ago. People at church. I'm not some brag there.
You're very popular, huh?
Yeah, no, the way I worded that was not very good. No, I would go to say at church on a Sunday morning and people would be like, "Oh, I love your content." And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, "Well, thank you." They're seeing it. That's positive and I appreciate the encouragement. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, you didn't actually like it, so maybe like it next time. A like costs you nothing. But yeah, so again, just a friendly reminder for people in your life that have businesses, even if you don't always watch all their content, just give them a little double tap, or depending on what the platform is. And even that costs almost nothing besides your time as you're scrolling by, and it is much appreciated. So quick little PSA.
Yeah. Love that. And you're totally right. Doesn't take any extra effort. I would be curious though. So I saw on my LinkedIn feed, speaking of going through your feeds, that whole who's the person that you've most like engaged with, blah, blah. Like, did you look at that yet?
No, I didn't see that. When did they launch that? Was that pretty recent?
Yeah, so I take it this year, this is their like end of year wrap up, but it also gives you stats on how many days were you on LinkedIn, what was like your most engaged content, this, that. So speaking of like you're on LinkedIn a lot, I would have felt the same way. And then LinkedIn confirmed that by saying that I've been on 344 days of this year.
It's impressive.
I guess, but that also says to me, I mean, like, yes, that is good. And obviously I like the platform, but I think that also says that I need a vacation from LinkedIn. We only have how many more days left to the year, so I haven't even.
At this point, you're almost every single day, minus literally just a few. Which that's not necessarily a bad thing, unless you feel like you have happened to spend too much time on there. But like LinkedIn is one of your key platform. For me, I just kind of repurpose and occasionally connect with advisors. You're crushing it on there. I know we've had conversations offline where that's how you've networked and even found clients to then serve in your business. So again, I wouldn't necessarily take it as a negative thing unless you're feeling like, God, am I wasting time on there? Because there's a difference in, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that have been on LinkedIn a ton, but have almost very little or have very few posts. True. You're contributing constantly. And I feel like, again, at least from my perspective, the way that you utilize LinkedIn is the more correct way. You're posting, you're engaging, you're actually networking and not just showing up and lurking, as I think that's what the cool kids say.
Yeah, I forget if it's lurking or creeping, but yes, similarly, skulking, anything that doesn't really have a positive connotation to it. But I should say, so when I really first discovered you personally, and anybody who's listened to this podcast knows that I found Brandon because I loved Elements and I wanted a financial advisor who used it. I found you on Twitter. So that's where your content back in the day was doing very well, at least from my standpoint. And I have to thank you because it's been, so I think we acknowledged just last week, it's been a year for you on this podcast. And so to imagine that this quirky idea that I had of let's just like go through the news. And then I did like 2 or 3 episodes and talked into the void and said, that's gross and I don't want to do it anymore. You want to help me? Can we talk about it? And you basically said, sure, which I don't know any financial advisor that does that. So thank you 1,000,000% for being part of this and going on this crazy ride with me for a year.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun, even just the conversations pre and post show, just being able to connect with you, learn more about what's going on in your life, and taking it beyond just business relationship to also a friendship too. So it's been a lot of fun over the last year, and here's to the next year of the podcast.
Cheers to that. Yes.
Got my branded water bottle here.
Oh, good job. Well, that's better than mine. But yes, happy holidays to everybody. Thank you for listening and taking part in this. As Brandon said, we're doing another year, so get ready.
Yep, looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Allie.
Thank you.